So it is my distinct honor this morning to welcome the moderator for our event. John McCarthy is currently the Executive Director with the historic Spanish Point, and he can tell you quickly, briefly about that. But the major thing with John, he has been with us from the beginning here. So if you would join me in welcoming back John McCarthy.
Thank you, Patrick. It is my pleasure to be back for the fourth presentation focusing on how we can kind of take charge of our own health and influence our lives as we get older and enjoy this wonderful place called Sarasota. And so I really appreciate everybody being here today. Those of you who are going to participate and our great speakers and all of our wonderful sponsors. We couldn't do this without all the wonderful sponsors. And so you've had a chance to chat with and be exposed to some of those sponsors. You're going to have some other opportunities to do that today. But let's give a good round of applause for those people that helped make this financially possible, all those great sponsors. And you know, I just really like to thank the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association for taking the lead on this. I think it's fascinating that we have a condominium association that sees as part of their mission education of the general public as well as their members on topics that are so important to us as individuals as well as us as a community. So I think that's really special, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to be here today. One of my jobs is to keep all the speakers on track, and then I've got somebody going to try to keep me on track this morning too, so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The format today, we've got 4 speakers before lunch. We've got a great lunch, which has been custom tailored for the subject of the day. And then we've got, actually we're going to do a little something special right before lunch, then we've got 4 more speakers after lunch, and then we're going to have our question and answers. So the way we do the forum at the end of the day is that if you have questions during the course of the day, write them on a little 3x5 card. You might have some 3x5 cards out on the tables. If you don't, just take a scrap of paper. Write your question. If that question does not get answered in the normal course of the presentations, then I'll pose that question to the speakers in our panel discussion in the afternoon. And this is going to be a lot of fun. We've saved some time at the end of the day to have a robust little conversation to kind of wrap things up. And we're always interested in your feedback, so as Patrick Gannon said, please give us your feedback, tell us what you want to hear about next time. Patrick actually asked me to do a little recap of where we've been over the last 3 years and 4 presentations. So if you want to take a look at the dual screens, this is kind of an amazing place here. You don't get to look at me anymore, you need to watch the screen. But I want to kind of give you a little bit of background. I was approached by these 3 folks to see if I would be willing to participate in the first program. And this is Don Fitz over on the left, and I met Don when I worked at SCOPE, Sarasota County Openly Plans for Excellence. And Don was very much involved with Universal Design Coalition. And Don introduced me to Patrick Gannon, the president of the Downtown Condo Association, and also to Bridget Spees. Now, many of you probably know Patrick. He's kind of out there in the community. He's a great guy, loves Sarasota, does everything he can to make Sarasota a better place. But if you haven't met Bridget, oh my, she was at the registration table this morning. She's my special friend, and she is just simply charming. There she is. Hey, Bridget. At any rate, so those are the folks that got me involved, and I did a little history, and so this all, if you think back far enough, there was something called the Winter Forum that was put on for SCOPE, the Winter Forum for Positive Aging, and that occurred from 2007 through 2011 and engaged people just like we are today on issues of how do we live our lives the best. And then from 2011 to 2014, the Patterson Foundation sponsored an initiative called Aging with Dignity and Independence, which was inspired by the woman who created the Patterson Foundation, Mrs. Patterson herself, who in her old age took control of her life. Even though she was getting dementia, even though she had rheumatoid arthritis, she wanted to make the decisions about her life. And so as I thought about the programs today, I realized that stress is caused by our lack of control of our own lives. When other people control our lives, it causes stress, right? And when we can make decisions for ourselves, and when we have control over what happens in our lives, we have less stress. And there's an opportunity here, folks, because today is a message of hope and a message that puts your health back in your hands to a certain extent. and hopefully by the end of the day it'll change your view of your relationship with your physician or physicians, and then what are the other types of things that you can be doing to extend optimal health for your life. Now then the Institute for the Ages came along, created by Scope. And Institute for the Ages was focused solely on aging issues. And so they conducted conferences like this for 2 years. And then along comes the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association, which again I think is just fantastic. The first forum that we had was November of 1915 at the Hyatt Regency. We had Tom Barwin from the city. We had a representative of the Pines of Sarasota. We had Greg Hall, architect, Ellen DeHaan, attorney, and Kathy Black, the champion of geriatrics. Everybody know Kathy Black? Awesome. And so, oops, my slides aren't working out the way I wanted to today. Well, this was supposed to be a joke because I wanted to tell y'all that this stuff really works. I've gone to 4 of these forums, and if you look at the photographs that appear on all the different flyers, I haven't aged a bit. So anyway, back to this. We met and Scope presented some data. I was with Scope at the time. Scope was a community engagement organization. If we look at the data in the upper left-hand corner, we find that, you know, in Sarasota County, 40% of the folks are over the age of 65. In the nation, it's like 19%. You get on down to Venice, it's 65%. So we are a community of people who are aging, right? And then a little study here about what kind of food we were eating, and what we found was that the age group that was eating the least amount of green, leafy, good stuff was the age group over 65. They just weren't doing that anymore. And so that's an issue. And then when we looked at suicide rate, we found that there was a very high suicide rate in our community for folks that were aging and frustrated with how their lives were turning out. So that kind of leads to Age-Friendly Sarasota, which is another initiative of the Patterson Foundation. Kathy Black came and told us all about what was a new initiative back at that point in time, and which has now blossomed into many, many different segments of the community, because Kathy told us about the 8 domains of well-being and all that good stuff. And oh my gosh, I gotta move. I can't believe it's that fast. Woo! Tom Barwin came and chatted with us. Greg Hall told us about universal design. The folks from the Pines told us about different. Ellen Hirsch DeHaan was an amazing attorney who told us more about sexually transmitted diseases in condos than we probably wanted to know about, but did so in such a hilarious way that I predicted she would be at McCarthy's Comedy Club, and I went on their website, and there it is. She's going to be there in about a week, McCarthy's Comedy Club. Here's all our sponsors from the first year. This is the feedback we got from the first year, and kind of encouraged us to do this thing again, which we did. And then I'm not seeing all my slides and I'm out of time, but we've talked about aging. We've talked about the brain science with Dr. Cheryl Brandy from Roscamp. We had Peggy Saffron come and tell us how to escape anxiety. We had Dr. Wasson tell us that if we don't have hearing, we're going to lose our minds. Literally. If we don't have good hearing, we're going to see dementia earlier on in our lives. And Nikki Cobrins, who's back with us today, cutting-edge technology of what's going on to preserve our brains. And Nikki, we're so happy to have you back. We had Kathleen Hausbart. She's like a walking, talking encyclopedia of geriatrics. She is awesome. I liked her slide. Aging, an inevitable human condition. We can deny it or we can face it. We had the panel discussion. Oh my gosh, we came back and we did it again. I talked about how the opportunities Sarasota had to be better. So did Tom, so did all these people. We had this gal, Jamie Minton, millennial, tell us about millennials. And then, oh my gosh, Hedda Massa Houghton changed my life by asking me one question, which is, what is it I've always wanted to do and never had a chance to do? Anyway, Joy, all this stuff. We got all these different partners. And I'm going to walk through this and tell you that I'm almost done. Legacy of Optimal Aging. 3 years of community enrichment, hundreds of engaged attendees, 30 exceptional presentations, 23 amazing experts, dozens of generous sponsors, 4 informative forums. That's what the Downtown Condo Association has done for you in the last 3 years.